All right, welcome back. First Charged Up has now been officially played for 5 weeks, and we saw some great competitions across the world, and we are in the last week of qualifying tournaments for the first championship. We have a lot to unpack in this show, like breaking down Alliance captains requesting robot modifications, grids filling up everywhere, and what we believe the new meta of Charged Up is going to be heading into DCMP week might be, and issues with Alliance selection and how to revise it. All of this and more coming up on this edition of FRC Robotics.
This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. Kettering University is looking for talented robotics students who want to continue learning and innovating in a hands-on real-world experience format. Kettering University representatives will be at dozens of FIRST events this season, including the championship. Go to kettering.edu/first to see which events you can meet a Kettering University representative. FRC competition season is here. Submit your favorite moments to FRC Clips of the Week by each Sunday at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. Also, the FRC Top 25 poll is open Sunday 5 p.m. Eastern to Monday 5 p.m. Eastern, where you can vote for your top 25 teams of the week at firstupdatesnow.com/FRC Top 25.
All right, welcome to the show. If you've not caught our show previously, FRC Roundup is where we take a look at important topics currently happening in FRC, highlight some discussion points about events that may have happened, strategy, or really anything that correlates with FRC. If you, the fun community, think there's a topic that we should cover on FRC Roundup, please feel free to ping me in the fun Discord, and I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Nick Mathis, and I'm currently in the 1st and Michigan region, and I'm a mentor on Team 33, the Killer Bees.
And I'm Connor McBride, mentor for Team 166, Chop Shop, MC, and game announcer in the New England District. Our guest tonight is Libby Kamen. She is the head coach of Team 1923, the MidKnight Inventors from Plainsboro, New Jersey. Libby, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's exciting to be back on a fun show, and I'm super excited to join you guys tonight.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right into the first topic. I know that over the past couple of days, there's been a thread on Chief Delphi regarding Alliance captains requesting to make modifications to robots, either prior to the elimination, prior to Alliance selection, or after. The original OP essentially had said that there was Alliance captains that were walking around and asking teams if they were interested in maybe making a change to the robot, such as maybe like adding ballast to the robot or something along that sort. And I thought this was an interesting topic that we should bring up tonight. I know that's definitely a lot of, in my opinion, I think it happens quite a lot actually at events, and trying to figure out what teams are really going to correlate and mesh with you well during the Alliance selection process. And I guess in my overall thoughts about it, I actually personally do not have a problem with it. I think that one thing that I, ultimately, in my opinion, is you definitely want to find the team that is going to be, gel most with your alliance. So if that's, whether you're adding ballast to because you're really happy with, the situation that the robot's in, and you think that they could add a lot, but, maybe adding 20 pounds or so of ballast would make them even that more competitive. Most of the time, in my opinion, at least, it's not coming from an ill will scenario. Like, they're essentially just trying to make your robot fit better with their lines because they see value in you. So in my opinion, I think it's a net positive. But Connor, we'll go through to you. You competed this past weekend and went through the Alliance selection process. Did you see any of this sort of happening, or have any thoughts about this when you were looking to grab your first pick or second pick?
Yeah, so we didn't have that wasn't an issue on my alliance at WPI. I didn't hear about anything at our event, but I've definitely heard about stuff like this throughout my time in first, for sure. So I think that where the OP is getting at, it was like mainly just kind of like zip tying things down, making sure that like your radio or like an air tank doesn't like fall off and like get caught up in your drivetrain. I totally get like the reasoning for that alliance captain or whoever it was that was requesting the team to do that. Hey, like that is that team's choice to be able to make those modifications if they want. At the end of the day, it is their robot. It's not ours, and it's something like I'll do me, and you do you. So we have to respect it at the end of the day. Now that might be something that you go around to your like first or second picks and be like, hey, like we are thinking about picking you for alliance selection. If we end up picking you, are you okay with us doing X, Y, and Z?
Mhm.
And if they say if they say yes, like, all right, great, perfect. If they say no, and you're like, all right, well, we really need that to happen. Okay, well, good luck with the rest of the event. That's totally okay.
Mhm.
And same thing for like if you wanted to, like, we're gonna go a little far back in time here. So say like 2013 or 2016, putting like a pool noodle blocker on your robot to stop frisbees or the boulders. That
Mhm.
can be that's a little bit more of an issue, because at that point you're probably physically like drilling into that team's robot. Definitely ask for permission for that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, please. Because I saw some teams in prior years that didn't do that, and oh boy, were those second picks not happy. But yeah, just at the end of the day, it's their robot, it's their choice.
Yep.
Yeah, Libby, I know you're also the head coach of a team, and obviously involved with the selection process and whatnot. So, what's your overall thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, so I'm going to have what I will consider an unsurprising take if anybody looks at the history of 1923. In 2015, in the strong cheesecake era, we were on the Robo Wrangler Simbots Alliance at Championship, and not only did our robot get modified to include cam grabbers, which I think is important to what you're talking about, Connor, was a question we got prior to selection
Mhm.
that we agreed to, and is something that our team and their team did collaboratively, right?
Mhm.
Wrangler hands and MidKnight hands and Simbot hands all together. But also our partners were 900, the Harpoon team, right? Sort of the infamous cheesecake story, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's unsurprising to say that I am, of course, down for it. We actually did exactly what you guys were kind of talking about this weekend with one of our partners. I'm actually super excited. Our win at the Montgomery District this weekend was wonderful. We played with old friends and new friends, which is always my favorite thing, especially in districts when teams are so close, right?
Mhm.
Um, we went around and to the point of like, are you going to be cool with this? We went around and we looked at the teams that were going to be our potential second pick. We knew we were number one, and a couple of things stood out to us, right? We saw a team, we saw 8714 that was when they were up, they were good, but they were having reliability issues. So we went and talked to them and we said, we're thinking about you guys for a second round pick. Are you okay with the following? Hot
Mhm.
gluing your electronics in, making sure that everything is like really nice and set. Yes, no. Adjusting your autonomous. Yes, no. Putting ballast on your robot. Yes, no. And we did that for a lot of teams. The questions that we asked, and I'm probably going to forget something, and my strategy lead is in your chat right now, so he'll probably correct me, but we went around Sunday morning and asked a bunch of questions to the teams that were on that second round list. Robot size, robot weight, are you open to modifications? What are your autonomous modes? Just a bunch of things that, make sense for this context. And in the case of 8714, we talked about autonomous, and they even said, we're happy to, but we don't have our coder here. He's in the play, so he's not here today. And so what we did is we said we have our like junior coder here. We have one of them. And I said, do you want to sit down with our programming leads and figure it out? And so the lunch break was MidKnight programmers and Robo Griffin's kids sitting together figuring out a better autonomous mode for them. And MidKnight electrical kids and Robo Griffin's electrical kids working on their e-board and making sure it was consistent, because again, our scouting data straight up said when they are up and alive and connected to the field, they are a great defender and they are doing
Mhm.
what they need to do.
Mhm.
But in all of these qual matches, they lost comms, they lost RSL, any of the number of things you could see in a
Mhm.
observation. And so we're down for it, but I think the biggest thing with that is what you guys mentioned is if the team doesn't want to do something, it's their robot, right?
Mhm.
It is
Yep.
scary to me that a team who sits in that, number 1, number 2 alliance captain position thinks of Robot 24 as free to modify for them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? It needs to be something that that team is interested in, and that the plan is discussed, maybe not in detail ahead of the pick, but at least, are you open to adjustments? Are you open to ballast? I mean, when you talked about drilling into the robot, we noticed that their part of the reason they probably died was their battery cage had one point of connection to their frame, and we're like, all right, how are you cool with with maybe a couple more bolt holes through that?
Yep.
And it was like, yeah, of course, let's do it. And the great thing with 8714 is, like I said, they're they're sort of old friends, but they're new. Their rookie season was last year. We actually mentored them last year and kind of
Oh,
helped them
okay.
get set up. And so to play with them again and to see them sort of in year 2 and ready to go into the playoffs and win their first event was just such a joy. And we already had a relationship with their students, so maybe helping each other was easier, but like that whole concept of consent on the fix is really important. You can't just walk up to a team and be like, "We're doing this to your robot." But hey, are you open to ballast or changes in your code or whatever? I think is a super valid part of being an alliance captain is finding the right team, the right gel, like you guys said, and then
Yep.
fitting everybody to make the right choice.
Yeah, and one last thing before we move on. I think one thing that is cool too, especially in your situation, Libby, is that like definitely can say like that robot like got better because of the help that you were able to provide them also. So it's not even just like a scenario in which you're trying to like help them just specifically for the betterment of your like elimination alliance. Like that robot is going to be better because of the relationship that you guys were able to build and help them along the way in the rest of the tournament to also help you as well. But in the
Yeah.
end goal, like ultimately that robot is going to get better because you were able to sit down and walk with some of the kids and help get them with, the issues that they were having. And maybe, I don't know if they qualified for the FMA DCMP this weekend,
I
but
think they did. I need to check before
okay,
I
yeah. So
say that,
like,
but I'm
so
pretty sure they did.
right, yeah. So I mean, if they do compete, this weekend, hopefully the issues that you were able to fix with them, continues on to this weekend. And they're, again, it's an expensive program. We pay a lot of money to play, so the times that you are disconnected from the field really suck. So even if those couple times, if it was able to help them, that's a big deal. So
Yeah,
I do appreciate you do helping that team as well.
I just want to call out what Ultimate Glitch says in the chat too is about the overall program improvement, right? Going into Lehigh, that's great for them. Is that if they have a better electron, yes, they're in. Cool. Chat, thank you, Adi. Um, but um, not only the learnings for the season and having that more secure electrical board for the district championship and having improved autonomous modes, but the point about making the team better for the future, that is the like that 2015 alliance I talked about is the catalyst for
Hmm.
1923 to be a better technical team because we
Mm.
spent an entire day hand in hand with 148 and 1114 and learned how they do things from a strategic perspective, from a process perspective, from the just the way little nuanced things that you do to make your robots
Hmm.
better. That is like I will say the biggest reason 1923 became a better technical team and a better team at execution at competition. And so that experience of being hand in hand, especially from a higher performing team, right? You said that number 1, number 2 or any alliance captain,
Hmm.
and then that robot 24 that may need the help to be playoff ready. Like that is like I'm gonna say life changing, but like program changing for that
Hmm.
team if that relationship is managed correctly. And I'm hugely in support of it.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, we're gonna go and jump into our next topic of the night and discussing the new meta of Charged Up, and obviously going into this weekend. It's DCMP week for most of us. I know there was a couple that have been trickling with Israel and North Carolina, but this is the big one: Michigan, FMA, Ontario. The super big districts are finally firing up this weekend for their district championships. And one thing, I was at the shop on Saturday and I was watching the Monterey Bay practice matches and their quals, and I'm just seeing full grids left and right, full grid, full grid, full grid. And I'm like, we're not even to DCMPs yet, and it's like we're already maxing out the field. So I thought this would be an interesting discussion to bring up tonight, and how we think that the game might evolve coming into this weekend. Are we going to see some different strategies that come to play? Are we really going to focus on maxing the grid, and then do we see a defense scenario in which we go with that? So, Libby, I'll start with you. I don't know if you have anything that comes to mind on how things might change or what your team is planning on maybe doing differently coming into this weekend. I know that 33 has a strategically standpoint differently heading into this weekend than we did at our two districts. So we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, for sure. I think yeah, strategically different from districts is going to be cool. I'm very excited for district championship. The level play always gets a little bit more intense as you kind of go to that qualified only set of teams.
Hmm.
And the thing about maxing grids that really worries me, right? I'm seeing a lot of discussion that's like, oh yeah, it'll be down to like you max the grid and then you go play defense and prevent them from maxing the grid. The thing that very much worries me is that yes, that is true, and also penalties and red cards, right? It may not be, oh, we're gonna play defense, and even though we can both max out the grid, we got their grid faster, and then went and played D. It is, oopsie, we went and played D and accidentally slid into the wrong zone, and now we're 5 points apart because I got a penalty and that's my 5-point loss. And it's
Yep.
Yep.
a lot of it, I think, is going to be about playing clean,
Mhm.
and avoiding penalties, and most especially those big silly cards for when robots go oopsie.
Yeah, that's what I really think this game is going to come down to, at least from my perspective. I'll just put it out in the chat. I've been pretty vocal about it in the FIM Discord, but I put my number at 20 for max grids that we're going to see at Michigan State this weekend across all the divisions. Might be a hot take, but I set my number at 20 across the FIMstein and the qual, so we'll see what happens. But
I love
I think
Finstein.
that, yeah, I
Makes me
think
laugh
that
every time.
I think that what you said too is it's going to come down to penalties in a lot of matches, which is really unfortunate in my opinion. I think that First could have done a better job on the game design with this a little bit. I'm not a big fan in general of games that can max out scores, similar to 2017. I guess 2017 you technically couldn't because of the KPA, but like 5% of the world actually shot those balls.
Yeah,
So
who
it's
shot
like,
fuel?
whatever. But yeah,
Fuel
Yeah.
matters.
right, yeah. So I think that is one unique thing that we'll see this weekend, and it just obviously coming down to fouls in some scenarios. So Connor, you're competing in the New England District Championship this weekend. Big. Oh,
named
nice.
after female
Aw.
astronauts that live
That's
in New
cool.
England, and they're both still alive. So please be at New England District Champs. That would be really cool.
Right. Yeah,
Please.
that would be
That
really
would be
cool.
so cool if they could be
I
there. What
I
an
know
incredible thing to see your division. Sorry, that'd be so cool.
I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think what would be really cool is if for the grand finals, the winning alliance from each field is led out by the astronaut.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be
I
cool.
I want to go now. If I know I'm busy that for this weekend, but I want to see that.
I don't think that's actually going to happen, but I want it to.
Yeah.
This is can I tangent off your tangent for a second? I swear you could
Yes.
talk about meta. That very much reminds me that when I was a very young child, Sally Ride came to Epcot, and it was the time that I was like a kid obsessed with space. And anyway, we need more astronauts at events. Go ahead, Connor. What are we
Yes,
doing
I
with the meta?
agree.
I just want astronauts at events.
I mean, for what I was gonna say is like, yeah, you max out the grid and then you play defense. But I'm basically in agreement with you there, Libby. Like it's gonna be about who plays it the cleanest. This might be a little bit of a hot take. I wouldn't be surprised if teams like slightly slow down their cycle time just to be able to breathe a little bit more, so that they don't accidentally run into their the other alliance's community or their loading zone. And get those stupid fouls that you could get throughout any random match. I mean, as what we've seen like throughout events all this season, even as you get towards like the last 10 to 12 call matches, even those top seeds, those are still ever changing. Like my team had a match this weekend. We lost the match. We only got 1 RP. We dropped from 2nd to 7th. So yeah. So stupid things like that can happen. So it's just a matter of making sure that you play it clean.
Yeah, this is definitely the game of consistency if we've ever seen one. At least in the past couple of years, it's a big consistency game. But Tyler, you had something you want to add?
Yeah, something, we've talked a lot about playing defense at the end, but not necessarily what kind of defense. And, last week we highlighted Strike Force playing Klein defense right at the end. And I think that's really where we're going to see more of this happening. When I was out Las Vegas this past weekend, this is something that 359 did against 987 and won the match from doing something like this, where with just about 10 seconds left, about 20 seconds left, it looked like they were going to keep collecting, and instead they went to their substation, but instead of grabbing a piece, they kind of faked out 987. It's going to happen here on screen in just a moment. And they actually decided to stop and then actually play defense against 987 like this.
That's fun.
This is where I think we're going to see more of this.
That's good.
Nick, I'm not as bullish as you are on full grids, by the way. I think we'll see more happen maybe in quals, but I think when we cut the playoffs, especially deeper in, I don't know how often we're going to see it, just with teams being better overall, I think, in defensive play.
Yeah, that's fair. I think one thing that comes to mind too, at least in my opinion, I think we see a lot of more situational defense that happens this weekend. Running and grabbing a cycle. Hey, this team's coming. Let me just stop in the middle for a second, let them pop me, and then I keep going. I think we'll see a lot of situational defense. I'm hoping we do, because I really like robot collisions in the middle of the field. I'm a figure 8 driver. I have a race car, so collisions in the field are like music to my ears. But I think that's one thing that we could possibly see come this weekend. But Tyler, I think I agree with you. I think ultimately you're going to see more grids happen in quals than you are in the elimination round. I don't think that's a hot take. I think I would probably agree with that as well. But yeah, so before we go ahead and jump into our final topic of the night, we'll go ahead and bring Tyler back on to talk about our show sponsor, Kettering University.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick, and thanks a lot to Kettering University for their continued support of First Updates. Now, Kettering's going to be all over the next couple of weeks, so if you're at MSC or Fit Champs, and I believe a couple other district championships as well too, go ahead and check out Kettering, and go ahead and check them out at kettering.edu/first to see if they're a good fit for you. Over 30% of high school students were in robotics that attend Kettering University, so make sure if you think this is a good fit for you and you want to see what they have to offer, go to kettering.edu/first. Of course, they have a combat robotics team. They have an awesome first center and also an esports league as well. So check them out. They're also going to be the sponsor of the Archimedes Field at Championships. So go check them out at kettering.edu/first and make Kettering a great fit for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, small plug really quick. I believe Kettering University is doing the co-op mock interviews again at MSC this weekend. So if you're going to be at MSC this weekend and you're looking into going to Kettering or looking to get some interview experience, be sure to stop by the Kettering booth at MSC this weekend. Jumping into our final topic of the night, we're going to be discussing the alliance selection and the issues with it and how to address it. Libby, I know you've been very vocal on the topic in general, but there's definitely some issues, in my opinion, that correlate with the alliance selection situation and how the whole process works. One thing that I would love to see, and I don't think it'll ever happen outside of IRI, but I love the 1881. I for some reason I just love the opposite snake or whatever you want to call it. There's a name for it, but I can't think of it.
I don't care what the name is.
Opposite
I'm
snake.
calling it opposite snake for the rest of my life.
I think that would be really cool to see at some in some situations. It definitely makes your one seed stronger, obviously, but I think that would be something that would be a cool way to put it. But Libby, I know that you have some issues with alliance selection in general, so we'll go ahead and throw it to you, and we'll bounce off you from there.
So I was gonna say, I think my issue is not even with alliance selection, the concept, or like
Yeah.
serpentine or opposite snake, which is now what it is called forever. IRI, dear IRI committee, it's called opposite snake now. Thank you. My issue is with the fact that we are putting these young people in this super high stress situation, and then depending on how funny your DJ thinks they are, we're playing Jeopardy music and like putting them under even higher stress. I was super vocal last year at the championship when our division MC was saying, I really need your pick right now. And people from the stands were yelling, no, you don't, because teams are supposed to have the time that they need. It was brutal,
Mhm.
dude. Like we were not even a captain. And our team, like people in the stands were like, why are you rushing them?
Yeah, I
Like,
do remember hearing
let
about
them
this.
let them have their time, and it was like shoving the mic in their faces. You have to pick now. We're putting kids in a really high stress situation. I mean, how many times in your life, if you were don't answer this question if you were the alliance captain selector as a student, but like how many times in your life were you in front of an arena of thousands of people with a microphone in your face? Right?
Mhm.
So I was emceeing an event last year in FMA, and the DJ was like playing Jeopardy music and like the SpongeBob like 10 minutes later while the kids are like shaking like leaves with their paper in their hands. So I went
Brutal.
on like a very teacher, I'll wait style rant, which is, a little more personal opinion that I probably should have put into the microphone, but I turned it into a fun moment of like, thank you, scouts, where I said, hey, laugh all you want, but how many of you are scouting today? Put your hand in the air. Okay, do you want them to take your data into account? Okay, well then you're going to give them the time that they need to make their selection. Um, there's not an easy way to think about the fact that you're also trying to run a show at the same time, and like the show ready events crew at your regional or your event manager in your district and your like general event committee is trying to get the show on the road and get your teams to lunch so you can do your playoffs, and that is a totally reasonable thing. But I wish I had the magical answer to teams can take as much time as they need, and also we need to do a line selection on time. I actually in game day chat a couple weekends ago, I actually a huge compliment to a couple of the MCs, but especially Karthik on Ontario, because open mic, he will say, take as much time as you need to make your selection. And I think that's
Mhm.
super important. I don't have a ton of like opinions that aren't already on Chief Delphi 85,000 times around like the Serpentine draft or general alliance selection concepts in first. But I really think we need a little more like grace and kindness for this
Mhm.
extremely like the situation that high schooler finds himself in is a total anomaly. And sometimes they can't even say their own team number right because they're so nervous. So maybe just like
Right.
don't put any extra pressure on what could be like a 14-year-old on a microphone for the first time in their whole existence. And just like, to me, I'd rather have a shorter lunch if every kid walked out of alliance selection not feeling like they were going to pee their pants from anxiety. Like that's
Yeah.
really important to me. I care about how they feel much more than if I have enough time to eat an overpriced hot dog, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Connor, overall thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. So I can think back to Western New England earlier this year when I emceed that, and one of the teams they were not expecting to be an alliance captain, and you could tell. I announced them like, all right, they're coming onto the field. It's blah 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 blah. I'm not gonna give them away, but yeah. Um, it, I always make sure, they walk onto the field, make sure they know where they're going. Then I move on to the next person, and they walked up to me and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And
Me
I
neither,
just
bud.
like I'm just like right there with you. So I just nodded. I'm like, okay. And we moved along, we're going through it. And I made sure as I'm walking over, I mute my mic and I go, are you okay? Do you need a minute? That does not need to me, that does not need to happen on a microphone.
Mhm.
That's because, if they're not ready, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. And at that point, I can just kind of like point over to AV and just be like, hey, can we do something? Or we can like start like talking about, I don't know, maybe one thing that I did like,
Bring out the
and
dad jokes.
so yes, it's a little gray area on that for me. I guess it kind of depends upon the personality, but I
That's
digress.
fair.
I want to shout out Joe Niski, who was emceeing North Shore in week 3. This was a very, very much like a psychology lesson here of you continue to go and do something, the audience catches on, and it was almost like clockwork. So they just kind of like point to each alliance and be like, this alliance is almost ready. Points to the other alliance, this alliance is almost ready. And we're just kind of getting everyone into it, but taking the distraction away from that alliance representative to the point where like he was just spinning it off, making good jokes about saying, oh, they're almost ready, this and that, but making sure that it wasn't directed towards that alliance at the moment.
Mhm.
To the point where the audience would just catch on and he would just have to point and everyone just goes, almost ready. And it was great. Everyone was able to just, it was distracted over to there, but it made everyone like, feel good. There's one thing that I don't like is in Libby pointed to this is when MCs or game announcers, really any volunteer, is trying to speed up the process. There is no rule written for how much time that you need. Now, maybe there will be one day eventually. Maybe there'll be a shot
If
clock and like you got a
if there
minute,
is, I'm
but like,
calling it out.
yeah,
Oh, that would
There
make
better
me so
not be.
sad.
if there is, I can guarantee you guys there will be a show about it. So um,
I'll come back.
we will
I'll come
we
back.
will
I got
talk about
opinions.
it. Yeah.
We'll run back.
So I see this happen all the time, and I make sure hey guys, like at the end of the day, first is the company, and we are the buyer, and we are paying for a service. The service is the the competition that we're at. So as the buyer of the service, we deserve, in my opinion, we deserve to have that right to be able to have the time that we need. And that also I guess that kind of ties into like, when the field is running ahead of schedule, like don't rush us to the field when the field's like 10 minutes ahead. Our
Mhm.
scheduled match isn't for another 10 minutes. So that kind of ties into it as well. Uh, you know, this badge does not mean that I'm above the law. This badge means that I'm a volunteer and that I love doing this, that I love doing these events. Because if I'm going to these events and I don't like something that's going on, maybe I should either voice my opinion, or this is a hot take, this probably isn't the program for you.
I
Yeah.
I really like your point about the badge not making you above the law. I think that's really important. We do that
Yep.
similarly, not as volunteers, but like in our travel training on 1923, which is a weird thing for me to say when I was on like baby 1923. That was like, gee, I hope we get picked. But in our travel training and like talking to our team about how we behave in the world, we say, yes, we are good. That does not make us better than anybody else. And
Yep.
I feel that way about volunteers a lot too. That's a different show for a different time, but the badge does not make you the get off the practice field, no more bull crap cop.
Mhm.
That is an actual quote that was said to one of our alliance partners this weekend. The badge means that you are responsible for making that event good for the customers, which are your teams and most especially your students.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of conversation in the chat about, MCs that are making teams feel comfortable and really giving them time. And like you said, Connor, even with your own experience, and I did the same thing in Tallahassee, was turning the microphone off and being like, "Are you good? Do you feel
Yep.
ready, or do you want me to vamp it for a little bit?" Right? Whether that is dad jokes, or I actually really like the idea of like it's mentioned in the chat that George did it in California is um, explaining the bracket. Right? This is a
Mhm.
new bracket. It's confusing. But that maybe that
Mhm.
won't be the gimmick every year, but like, hey guys, this is how it's going to work, right? We used to be trained to, you had, 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and you would like point them at each other at the end and be like, this is who faces each other. It's like, well, we can't do that anymore. So let's talk
Right.
about this structure, right? I think it's really important to remember that, MC, practice field attendant, safety glasses person, lead cuer, blah, blah, blah. The role is to help the students feel comfortable. And to me, as it applies to alliance selection, anything that can make our students feel more comfortable and more at ease with this really high pressure decision that they're making is gold. Like, always, always focus on their experience and making sure that it is positive and they come out going, that was fun instead of that was terrible.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally agree. Tyler, you had something to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess I'll be real quick. And 3 of the 4 of us have been MCs on the field, right? So it's like looking at
All
it,
four of
it's-
us
it's
have.
all four. Sorry, it's all about
Yep.
making everybody comfortable in that route. And that's definitely the route I took in Las Vegas this week as well too. And even Hall of Fame teams needed time and that sort of thing. It's just the way it was. I do like the proposed solutions to things though, and how we could potentially maybe satisfy some of this. And I think the key issue is that we need to probably just get the kids off the field for that sort of thing. I don't really see a future where, we don't make it awkward for the students without necessarily having them directly in the field and shoving a microphone in their face for things. So here's what I propose is that why not in general have lunch happen and just have essentially a draft like how the NFL does it for their drafts, where there's a certain clock that counts down. You have a representative that comes up just like in a match when you're going to set up on what driver station you're going to be in. You have a time for that, right? How much time you can submit that. You get how much time you can essentially hand the piece of paper to the FTA or the head ref or the MC or whomever it is. And that then the MC reads, hey, with the first pick of the number 1 alliance, XYZ team is picking this team. And then all you need to do is just get some sort of confirmation from the alliance person that's been picked if they're accepting or declining for it. And then you just move on. But you keep it with just music playing in the background, a timer of some sort. And my solution to the timer, because at some point I do think you need to have one of those. And that way it doesn't actually put it on the team necessarily, because then they know that it's okay to take 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever it is. Then the pressure's off for things, right? Like it does become pressure if that time expires on stuff. But I think I do feel you do need to set some sort of time expectation. But if you have that expectation, then it's there and people know there is none right now. So you can't hold people accountable to that time expectation. My solution to that is if the time runs out, they're assigned the next highest ranked team. And I don't care if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is, but at least in that standpoint, there's some sort of solution moving forward. The pressure is taken off those kids of shoving a 15-year-old on the field with a microphone. And to me, that still provides a decent environment where people can check out what's going on with the teams. And first, there's plenty of videos to pump in between right now to the show if we really have to.
Yeah.
I like
I
that
agree.
too, Tyler, because like I don't know if I'm never one to like, oh yeah, that should be the answer. But I
Yeah.
like that if it exists in a layout where that student is not isolated from their team, right? Maybe you have those representatives like up against the like wall. I always think of events in hockey arenas, even though I'm in a district, like your representative up against the boards, and then you can have one person like runner down to them, right? Instead
Yeah.
of them sitting on their phone and they don't have service in the arena. And like, I don't know, like my selector, who has said several things in chat at this point about alliance selection this weekend, was like in our Discord, like, are you sure 100%, like back and forth trying to make sure that we all got service. If that's the version of it, I kind of like the ability for like, you don't have to deal with the, back in my day, banned wireless communication between your selector and the stands. You could actually have that communication right there, and then you're all sitting in front of the list and just sending a runner up. That's actually kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way because I'm not a sport. I will admit I'm not a sports gal, so I don't know how the NFL does it. I don't. I apologize. I know people love sports, and that's their connection to FRC strategy. Sometimes it's not mine, but but that's super interesting. Like I I like that. Yeah. Not me.
Right.
Sorry, but I do really like that. I think it's a lower pressure environment that could still maybe have a time limit or be part of the show without putting the student in the spot where they're nervous.
I know timers can scare people on those things, but I just put in chat, we have timers for when you can submit your lineup, when you can get your robots on the field, and when you can ask for a backup. So it's not like these don't exist. I mean, timers are out there. I don't care what the number is. As long as we let teams know what it is, I think that's a good step forward.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, the blinking timer above our heads right now.
I was just about to
It's
mention
making me really
that.
nervous. It says 0 and it's blinking red. I need to shut up. I'm sorry.
You're okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to FRC Roundup. Special thanks to all those who clicked that follow button or stepped up to help fund with a subscription or donation. Your support really helps us continue to make great content. Don't forget, you can watch FRC Roundup archived at youtube.com/first updates now and watch live Mondays after FRC recap during the competition season. Thank you to Libby again, our guest tonight, for coming on. And on behalf of our producer, Tyler Olds, my co-host, Connor, and all fun correspondents, I'm Nick Jr., and thanks for watching. Good luck to all teams competing in Week 6 of the competition season this weekend. Tyler and I will both be at the Michigan State Championship this weekend, and Connor will be at the New England District Championship. I also believe that Tyler's going to be in Indiana on Saturday as well. Sorry about that. And be sure, if you see us, to say hi. We'll see you next week, same day, same time, where we take a look at what is going on with First Robotics on FRC Roundup. Thanks, everybody.
This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. Kettering University is looking for talented robotics students who want to continue learning and innovating in a hands-on, real-world experience format. Kettering University representatives will be at dozens of FIRST events this season, including the championship. Go to kettering.edu/first to see which events you can meet a Kettering University representative. FRC competition season is here. Submit your favorite moments to FRC Clips of the Week by each Sunday at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. Also, the FRC Top 25 poll is open Sunday 5 p.m. Eastern to Monday 5 p.m. Eastern, where you can vote for your top 25 teams of the week at firstupdatesnow.com/FRC Top 25. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow and check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.